So our culture tells us that the purpose of sex is to achieve a release. That experience of release, that sensation of release, that is the greatest gift that sex can give us. It is the most powerful experience, the most beneficial experience, and all our wishes and hopes will come true when we find that release in sex. And I am here to tell you that if you want to have really amazing sex, then you need to turn this around completely. The true purpose of sex, the true meaning and value of sex is exactly the opposite of a release. Do not try to achieve a release in sex. Do not seek for the release in sex. Do exactly the opposite. Seek exactly the opposite. And this is how you're going to bring a completely new quality of sexual energy into your life, a much more powerful sexual energy into your life, and a whole new world of really incredible experiences by doing the opposite to a release. Because this one thing about the release, it becomes a purpose in sex. It drives everything in sex. The purpose defines the technique you are using, where you are taking it, the choices you are making, the whole journey that you are creating out of sex. And the purpose that we have been given is that we need to take sex to that moment of release. We need to somehow release at some point, release the sexual tension, release that energy in our body. We need to feel that sensation of release. We need to get that experience of release. And supposedly, in that moment of release, everything will happen. In that moment of release, you will find happiness. You will find fulfillment. You will find satisfaction. You will find bliss. You will find affection. You will find connection. You will find aliveness. You will feel lots of medical benefits and even a window to God and to the divine in that moment of release. And I want you to take a moment, take a step back and reflect on the fact that this makes no sense. What do you want from sex? What do you want to experience in sex? And how do you want to feel after sex? Now, I might use different words to what the words that you might use, but more or less, I expect that the gist of it is as follows. You want to feel enriched. You want to feel alive. You want to feel the beauty of life in this moment. You want to feel happiness. With that partner, you want to feel affection. You want to feel closeness. You want to feel love, perhaps. You want to be vibrant. You want to feel alive. You want to feel beauty. You want to feel energy. Something like this, right? In the moment of sex itself, in all its glory, with all its erotic beauty and vibrations and sensations flowing through you as this aliveness, this energy, this beauty everywhere. And after sex, you want to feel really buoyant and you want to, see that your day is all sparkly and you feel that massive love and connection and joy in your heart with your lover, with others, in yourself. You want to feel alive and full of energies. So what I am describing here to you is a feeling of fullness. You are full of something. You are full of aliveness, of energy, of love. So you come out of sex full of energy, of aliveness, of love. So really what you're looking for from sex is an experience of saturation with these energies. In very loose terms, they go into different parts of your system and you get lots of different feelings from it. But it is an experience of saturation, of filling up. And the experience of a release, if you visualize it, is exactly the opposite to that energetically. It is an experience of being full, essentially bursting with something and releasing it to empty yourself. So the result of a release is emptiness. It is not fullness. So the thing that you are doing here is not filling up or saturating. You are emptying yourself to become empty. And this is the pattern that a lot of people find themselves in when they have sex. They build up that sexual tension, that sexual energy to achieve that release. Then they release that sexual energy and the emptiness settles in and they feel empty. Now, somewhere along the line, there has been a proposition that that state of emptiness is actually fullness. Then when you empty yourself, you're actually going to be full of energy and aliveness and happiness and joy and love and affection, etc., etc. somewhere this idea that makes no sense has been accepted as absolutely logical. So how did this happen? How did we come to such an illogical idea that emptying all the feelings out of your body, all that sexual energy out of your body, is actually going to create an experience of fulfillment and saturation and well-being and love and affection and aliveness and everything? How did we come to believe that sexual energy is such profoundly toxic substance that we have to get rid of every last drop of it in our body, and the very moment we do, bliss is going to come down upon us and we will find the true happiness in life? And this moment is going to become full of joy and energy and love because this toxic substance of sexual energy is no longer there. Now, it is not so much that we came up with that idea, rather, it was never reviewed from the animal times. So this is an idea that was proposed in the early days of primitive sex science, when sex science was still in its very, very primitive stage. Very uncomfortable and very awkward, looking at the anatomical cross-section of a human body. They said, well, surely the point of it is to stimulate this nerve until it releases, and that is going to be the purpose of sex from now on. And since then, nobody has questioned it. And if you think about it, what is the sexual release for in nature, in its basic animal form? Why does it exist? Why does the release exist? It is a signal that you are done. You no longer want to be here. We are basically using an animal tool, the same tool that animals use, to fulfill all our human needs and hopes and wishes and desires in our intimate relationships. That moment of releasing genital tension is going to deliver everything that is beautiful about your sexual connection with a partner. And why do we believe this? Because we are humans, because we need meaning, we need relationship, we need the truth. And it is such a poor thing that we have been given, basically just stimulating the genitals to achieve a sensation of release, that we simply can't let it be like this. We have to adorn it with all the mythology and the lore and extra meanings and supernatural qualities. So now this feeling of release is going to make you feel ultimate love, and is going to clear out all the negative energies, and is going to connect with your divine in the moment of absolute consciousness, and is going to release the sacred liquid amrita that is going to make you enlightened, etc., etc. So the whole mythology has grown around the sensation of release, like, it's going to do a million supernatural things for you. And then in that moment of release, we might feel that sense of aliveness. We might feel that sense of letting go and being in the moment and being present, and the sense of connection. Yes, we might. Why? Because for decades we have been practicing only the mechanical stimulation to reach that one moment of release, that one sensation of release, and the whole of sex became encrusted as in that mechanical work with no aliveness in it, no feeling of being really present with each other, or being loving to each other. It is work, 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 work. And when we achieve that feeling of release, yes, it feels more alive than that crust. It feels like we are more loving, like we are feeling the moment of presence with each other. We're letting go of our minds, and we are there in the flow of life for that one moment. It's like a flower that's broken through the encrusted earth. And it seems to perpetuate this myth that the feeling of release is something really special. But what has really happened here is that we could have felt that presence and love and connection and freedom in every moment of sex. We could have just lived every moment of sex and drunk all that beautiful energy and felt that connectedness and that love flowing between us in every single moment of sex, if we didn't believe that it's only the moment of release that can give that to us. And you see what happens if you create this as a purpose of sex for yourself. Then every moment of sex is serving that purpose. So every moment of sex is driving you to eventually release and empty yourself. And instead of every moment of sex being driven to fill up, to saturate, to be nourished, to take in that sexual energy into yourself. So what happens here is not just the final event of releasing that energy, but throughout the whole process, you didn't have in your mind the purpose of filling up and saturating with this sexual energy. So you didn't empower it, you didn't enhance it, you didn't take it in properly. So not much of it stays. So this is what you've got to understand, that the true purpose of sex, your true wish for sex, is that it saturates you. It fills you up. It makes you come more alive. So you need to make that the purpose of sex in the moment of sex, that you are filling up, you're saturating. You're not driving it to empty yourself of something. You're filling up from every moment. Sex is a space where you go just to spend some time to create that beautiful, nourishing energy, to absorb it into your system, to soak it up like a sponge, moment by moment, sensation by sensation, vibration by vibration, until you fill up with it. Then you come out of sex. You're full of love, life, energy, and you have an amazing day. And you need to have it as a purpose, that this is the purpose where you are driving sex, to fill up, to saturate from every moment, because then you will empower every moment to saturate yourself. And if you're driving sex instead to emptying yourself, then you will end up empty, because that is what you wanted. You created this. You wanted to be empty, and now you're empty, and now you're confused. Why do you feel a feeling of being empty after sex? In your life, with your partner, where is all that love? Where is all that energy? Where is all that, incredible, powerful energy and beauty in your life? Why do I feel empty? Well, because that is where you were driving it. People might feel a lot of sexual energy that they want to release in the beginning when they just meet. There's a surplus of sexual energy. There's a lot of desire and chemistry and passion. And you might feel that the purpose there is to release your sexual energy, the sexual tension with each other. You might feel that what you're looking for is to release all that built-up charge between you. But actually, that is still not what is happening. Because if you go home and you just masturbate on your own, imagining this person that you're really wildly attracted to, you will have a release, you will get an orgasm, but you will not feel that amazing feeling that you get after you actually had sex with that person and released. After you had sex with that person and released, then afterwards you feel on top of the world. You feel so alive, you feel so vibrant, you feel so sparkly. And it's the same release. It is the same thing you've just done in your body. And the reason that you feel so different when you actually had sex with that person is because before the release, so much was shared and exchanged, and all that chemistry, all that energy, all that beauty between you flowed, and that filled you up. And after that, you had a release. But all that good stuff from sex has stayed with you. It is still sparkly in you. And people make that mistake all the time. They will have really amazing sex where in every moment they felt really good. They had lots of really nice sensations. There was great energy in every moment. Then they will have an orgasm. They will achieve that release. And they will think that they feel amazing afterwards because they had a release. Well, no. You feel amazing because you created lots of amazing energy in every moment before the release. And it has stayed with you. And even the release, the flushing out of that sexual energy, wasn't able to get rid of that amazing energy in your body. And that is when you have buckets of sexual energy. But most people who are in relationships, who are not in that initial passion, they also feel that they need to be releasing all the time. What have you got to release? Are you really bursting with that sexual energy? Do you really have so much of it that you need to be flushing it out all the time? The chances are, for most people, you don't have a lot of sexual energy. It's actually quite hard to come by. You need to be doing a lot of things to build up that sexual tension, to create that desire. You could really do with replenishing it, with regenerating it, with filling up with sexual energy, with building it up. But what we do instead in this model of release, we create artificial sexual tension. So there wasn't anything to start with, but we go to bed, it's late at night, we start rubbing the genitals to create that irritation, that tension in the genital nerve, so that we can feel that we have something to release. Then we release it, and that's it, and sex is over. There wasn't anything there to start with, and all we've done with this is we have just emptied a bit more out of the body. And it is unmistakable that you have got nothing out of this. Nothing was left behind. Only that quick moment, that quick sensation when you achieved the release. So actually, you don't need to stay away from a release or to prevent it. You can include the release as well. But you need to be aware that a release is a flushing out of that sexual energy. So you can just decide to include it if you're okay with that. But you shouldn't be under any illusion that it is the release that is feeding you or nourishing you. It is the process of saturation, the process of filling up with that sexual energy throughout sex, moment by moment. That is what really enriched you. And the release took away some of it. But you might just be okay with that because you really like the sensation of the release, and that's fine. But it wasn't the release that gave you all the value and all the enrichment from sex. So to give you like a stupid mathematical example, let's say during sex you create 100 units of sexual energy. The release then flushes out 40 units, and you are left with 60 units. That is still good enough, and you feel great after sex. So that's how it works roughly. The purpose of sex still wasn't to achieve a release. The purpose was still to fill up before the release. That is what stays with you. The release is just something you decided to include anyway. Now, the release also does have a place, of course, sometimes. Sometimes this is exactly what you need out of sex. That is true. For example, you might have too much sexual energy, and it's good for you to release it. It is good to be in a good place, in the optimum place, in a balanced place. You can have too little sexual energy, you can have too much sexual energy. If you have too little, then it's better for you to stay away from a release because you're going to be feeling depleted, you're going to be feeling a bit sluggish, not so vibrant with it. You might not have a lot of desire for sex, or you might not feel so much in sex. So it's good for you to not release your sexual energy and to build it up. But of course, if you have too much of it, if you're bursting with it, then you might be perturbed by it. You might feel out of balance, you might be distracted, you might feel tense. So it's good for you then to release some of that sexual energy. It is still a loss of sexual energy. That doesn't change. It's just in this differential, obviously, a loss is a good thing because it brings you back to a better place. So sometimes a release is good for you, and sometimes a release is not good for you. It depends on your sexual energy levels. But in either case, this has nothing to do with the quality of sex. This is just management of your sexual energy. You just bring your sexual energy to balance. It is like going to the toilet. It does not make amazing sex. What makes amazing sex is always spending that time in that beauty, filling up with those energies, going through a journey, feeling that love and connection with your partner. A release is something you might need for yourself, for your system to feel well, but it doesn't make good sex. It doesn't even need to happen in sex. You can just do it on your own. It's going to be exactly the same release, and it's going to perform exactly the same function. It's going to give you exactly the same result. In fact, getting a release is the only thing that you can get on your own. It's all the other things that you can't get on your own. That energy together, that nourishment from each other's bodies, that love, that feeling of connectedness, all those energies, all those senses of beauty you can't get on your own. The release is the only thing you can get on your own, and yet this is the one thing that we always want our partners to focus on when we are having sex with them. It's like this is the best thing they can do for us, whereas we ourselves can do exactly the same thing ourselves much more quickly and a lot more effectively on our own. So getting a release is just managing your sexual energy. It is not about creating amazing sex. Now, there is this idea that we must get a release, otherwise we're going to be unwell. That once you are turned on, you're aroused, you are stimulated. If you don't get a release, you're going to explode, you're going to die. So people sometimes feel that it's not so much you want a release as you need a release. Otherwise, you're going to feel unwell. And then there is all kinds of mythology online, pseudo-medical articles that orgasms are really good for your health, for your well-being, and not getting an orgasm is going to kill you, essentially. So we have built up this picture that sexual energy is essentially this really toxic substance, and unknowingly it builds up in you all the time, and you have to release it all the time. And when you have sex, you have started generating this really toxic substance, and if you don't get rid of every last drop of it, you're going to be really unwell. So you really need to make sure it all comes out. So coming is often more of a necessity than a wish. There is that feeling that if you start sex, you have to come, you have to release, otherwise you're not going to be well. Now, this is all completely false, and it really doesn't have to be like this. It is simply fixed with a good technique. It is a way of practicing sex that creates this effect. And it has to do with a variety of things. All of them are fixed with a technique. First of all, the technique is really overstimulating. It is irritating. All the technique that we use on the genitals in our culture, in the mainstream, is too heavy, is too rough. Even when it appears gentle, trust me, it is too rough. It is too fast, too hard. It irritates the genitals. The genitals go into this really tense craven mode, and then they have to be released. But you didn't need to create that effect. You could have used a different technique that would have created a much better, much more nourishing and rich sexual energy that would just flow into you on and on and on, and would create no tension, no imbalance. Why do we use this overstimulating technique, this irritating technique? Because we live in this paradigm that we need to irritate the genitals to make them release. It happens so often to people. You don't feel at the beginning of sex that you really want to release something. You don't feel like you're bursting with something. But this tension, this irritation is created artificially through stimulation to create tension just so you can relieve it, just to make the experience of release possible. It was created completely on the empty space. So obviously the technique that is needed for that is overstimulating. It is irritating. And it is just a choice. And that is why everybody feels that once they're irritated, they are not okay without a release. It's because of the technique they used. And then, of course, it is important to use the techniques for channeling your sexual energy, channeling the sexual feelings into your body. They are not complicated techniques to learn. They're very easy to master, but they help you to spread all that sensation into your body to avoid any tension. And most importantly, we create that need to release psychosomatically. We are so conditioned to it in the body and mind that we feel it is weird to have sex without a release, because we see it as some kind of training, some kind of hardship, some kind of deprivation. And our minds are anxious about it, and our bodies are anxious about it, trying really hard not to come. So sometimes the body creates that craving because it is anxious, because the mind is anxious. It is psychosomatic, and then we read this as if the body really needs it. No, the body is just reacting to this anxiety in the mind. So if you approach this positively, and if you just understand that the purpose of sexual energy is to feed you, to saturate you, it's a good thing you are doing. You are drinking it, you are living it in your system. You don't want to get rid of it. You don't want to be empty. It's a really nice thing to do. Then little by little, you get reconditioned, and your body, your mind, they become completely willing to experience this kind of sex. They don't read sex anymore as, oh, something has started, we will need to release this. They read this as, okay, we're just going to spend some time in sex, absorbing this energy and then feeling good from it. Please understand that the purpose of sex is not to empty yourself. It is to fill up, to saturate from every moment with that beauty, that energy, that love, that aliveness. You can include a release in it, but it's not the powerful part. The powerful part is the saturation, moment by moment. So focus on that. Make the most of every moment. Have that experience of saturating from every moment of sex. And it doesn't even matter what you do in sex. As long as you spend some time there filling up, saturating from it, it can go in so many different ways, in so many different energies, different sequences. And that is the beauty of having sex without the purpose to release, because now you can have so many different journeys. And you don't have to do exactly the same sequence every time, because you need to arrive to the release every single time. Sex may saturate you with passionate energy, with more nurturing energy. It might saturate you through the whole body, or including the genitals, with an orgasm, without an orgasm. You just need to spend time in the space of sex, filling up with sexual energy moment by moment. This is the true purpose of sex. So that's it for today, and if you would like to receive more of my content, of my news, please go to my website, lovefloweducation.com, where you can sign up to receive my content weekly, my best videos, podcasts, articles, and you can see the online courses where I teach all these practices. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until next time.